All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of our 2025 learning series for the Southeast Asia Corporate Decarbonization Exchange, CDX. I'm Ping Manongdo, CDX Head of Partnerships, your moderator for today's session. Our focus today is on a critical question. Is your business ready for decarbonization? With rising regulatory pressure, investor scrutiny, and new trade expectations like the EU CBAM, this isn't a future problem, it's a now problem. We've invited three leaders from across Southeast Asia to share what's happening in their countries, from policy shifts to how companies are responding and what support is emerging. We'll keep this short, focused, and practical. To officially open the session, I'd like to hand over the floor to CDX CEO Mark Lister.
Great, thank you so much, Ping, and welcome everybody to the webinar. And thanks so much for joining us. We've created CDX as a kind of a meeting place to bring together the decarbonisation industry, the decarbonisation community. And if that's something of interest to you in what you're doing, then we'd love to hear from you about that. We're creating a permanent platform to make sure that ambitions around decarbonisation find their way to meaningful action. And we know that there's a lot of people who find this area fragmented, difficult to navigate. So what we're trying to do is help people who are experts in this area, who enable action, and also those of you who need to learn more and want to understand more about how you can move forward, to really engage with this as a model of exchange, to learn what you need to get connected, get informed about what's happening. We have a series of topics that we're going to continue to run through with a series of events through the year. And so we're really just kicking off this year with this first quite introductory high-level topic around the state of play in some of the key markets around Southeast Asia. So really pleased to have representatives from some of the key countries here to give us their perspectives. So we look forward to engaging with you as CDX grows. We want to grow CDX alongside as you grow. And as I said, the idea is really to help you get informed and get connected in the industry. So we hope this is the first of a longer engagement with many of you, and encourage you to learn more about CDX as we go through. Thanks, Ping. Back to you for the expert insights that we've lined up today.
Thank you so much, Mark. So we will begin with our first speaker, and I in advance ask for his bearing with us because he will be speaking first ahead of another speaker who will be coming in online very, very soon. Our first speaker is James Andrew Moore, the Chief Executive Officer of Azola Climate and an active member of the Renewable Energy Club at the Federation of Thai Industries. James has helped shape Thailand's carbon credit ecosystem and has worked with the government and private sector leaders to advance large-scale, nature-based, and tech-enabled solutions. Everybody, please join me in welcoming James. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ping. I hope everyone can hear me clearly, and good morning from Thailand. I think it's a pleasure to be able to share what's been happening, especially in Thailand. I think today, it's undeniable that all businesses are affected either directly or indirectly. And in most cases, in voluntary markets such as Thailand, although we're shifting to a more of a mandatory sort of market, the indirect pressures are currently sort of outweighing the direct pressures. But to give a spotlight on Thailand and what's happening in Thailand, I'd like to focus on the left-hand side of this slide that I've prepared. So in terms of the direct compliance pressures that are currently evolving in Thailand, definitely we have the NDCs of the country, and we're currently sort of shifting from a voluntary market more to a mandatory market in order to help the country sort of achieve its climate ambitions. We also have pressures from cross-border policies. Ping mentioned earlier about CBAM, but that's not only in the EU. We're looking at other advancements throughout, the globe as well, CBAM from other nations. We're looking at other sort of pressures such as EUDR, which is targeting the agricultural sector, EU PPWD, which will affect the packaging and waste of products as well. But deep diving into Thailand, the domestic regulations and tax has had a lot of advancements in the past couple of years. Firstly, we have the carbon tax, which is under the Excise Department in Thailand. This has officially been approved by the ministry and announced in the Royal Gazette. This is expected to be rolled out and in full effect next month. So this aims to support Thailand on carbon pricing, support companies in CBAM, and really to kickstart the implementation of Thailand's transition towards a mandatory and compliance-based market. The carbon tax in the first phase will target the fuel and petroleum consumption in Thailand, looking at around about $200 or $6 per ton carbon, which will increase to $700 or $21 yearly. This currently sits under the excise tax portion, so it's not going to be a direct impact, but this is part of the 3 stages in which they're rolling this out. So the first stage of the carbon tax is the awareness stage. So between 2025 and 2026, there'll be no direct impact, but it will be shown on the receipt, especially if you go and fuel your vehicles up with petrol, you'll see that there's a carbon tax added on there. And this is for awareness purposes. In 2027 to 2028, there'll be the consideration phase. So there'll be some impact to companies, but this will have to wait for the rollout of the Thailand's Carbon Act, of the Climate Act. In 2029 to 2030, we'll see a conversion period. So this will start to include other sectors such as coal and natural gas. So there'll be direct impact to companies, especially in electricity, steel, cement, shipping, and so on and so forth. So really the carbon tax is going to be in full effect as of next month. The second piece of legislation and regulation in Thailand is the Climate Act. So the Climate Act is under the Department of Climate Change, under the Ministry of Natural Resources in Thailand. There's an expected launch date, I think, next year. We are pending approval from the cabinet. And this is basically mandatory disclosures of Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. The size of companies and industries has not yet been disclosed. We'll have to wait for the sub-legislation for more clarity. Thailand also, under this act, is looking to implement an emissions trading scheme. So we're looking at a 2027 preparation period with a pilot happening in 2029 and expected full rollout by 2031. And this also targets ministries and departments to support and enforce sectors which are under their governance as well. Thirdly, we are moving towards more mandatory ESG reporting requirements. The Stock Exchange of Thailand has mandatory disclosures in place for disclosures of carbon footprint under the One Report or 56-1. Thailand, under the stock exchange, is also transitioning from the previous set ESG ratings to FTSE Russell. And FTSE Russell, as many of you are aware, is more of a global rating system. So Thailand's transitioning to ensure that there's more global benchmarking, there's greater relevance on industry, and also to illustrate Thailand's maturity in ESG. On the supporting side, we start to see that a lot of government agencies, but also private separate groups are supporting Thai businesses as well. The FTI, or the Federation of Thai Industries, also has multiple groups in which we provide policy updates, industry-specific policies and pressures based on the different groups. The Stock Exchange of Thailand does have a knowledge center, which provides a lot of information and knowledge to listed companies, and also a carbon accounting tool, which will be rolled out. The financial sector in Thailand has been very active as well, with green financial products being available to companies looking to transition and to decarbonize. There's also going to be green financial support for SMEs in Thailand as well. The BOI in Thailand also has tax incentive schemes to support the transition, along with other different developing policies, such as the Power Development Plan to increase the rate of renewable energy in our grid, looking at 51% by 2037, and also opening up the procurement methods for companies to access renewable energy. Given the time constraints, I think I'll park everything there, and the other areas of this slide I'll cover during my panel discussion. I'll hand this over back to you, Ping.
Thank you very much, James. We were able to get 3 exciting and a lot more that we will discuss later, regulations, carbon tax, climate act, and the mandatory ESG reporting. That is very impressive of Thai and very promising as well. All right, we'll park our questions for you, James, during the panel discussion. But at this time, we'll be moving on to our next presenter. Our next country snapshot will come from the Philippines and will be delivered by Frances Ariola, who is the lead convener of the Net Zero Carbon Alliance. She also heads corporate communications at Energy Development Corporation. Frances leads the Philippines' pioneering private sector coalition on net zero and has deep expertise in ESG, strategy, and regenerative development. Frances, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I think my camera's acting up, and but anyway, good morning, everyone, and hello, Ping, Mark, and my co-contributors James and Esther, and to all our attendees today. It's an honor to be with you to speak about something that's no longer just a sustainability agenda, even in our country, in the Philippines. It's already become a business imperative, and it's corporate decarbonization. So, in the country, over the past few years, the climate conversation in the Philippines has actually shifted. It's no longer a fringe topic or just a CSR add on here in the country. It's now about staying competitive, resilient, and relevant in a world rapidly moving towards net zero. So, is the Philippines or the Philippine businesses, are they ready to decarbonize? From where I sit, the answer is some are actually leading and many are learning, but most still need help to move forward. Next slide, please. So where do we see the momentum going? We see companies that are really, it's a small group, it's a small but strong group in the Philippines that are really paving the way. And the momentum is real and it's growing. We have here companies. Incidentally, they're all members of the Net Zero Carbon Alliance. We have here Artholand, Unilever Philippines, Holcim, and the Energy Development Corporation as a few examples since we have limited time. Artholand is building some of the country's greenest and most efficient buildings, and they're certified under the standards of LEED, or BERDE. BERDE is actually ecologically responsive design excellence standards, no? And then there's EDGE, excellence in design for greater efficiencies. So in simple terms, these standards or these certifications that Artoland has mean that these buildings or their buildings use less water, energy, and they have fewer emissions, and they keep the people and the planet healthy. They're proof that green construction is not just possible, but actually even profitable. Now let's go to Unilever Philippines. It continues to embed climate goals across its operations and supply chain in the FMCG industry. They have shifted to renewable energy for all their facilities here in the Philippines, and they practice regenerative agriculture as well as zero waste packaging. Now, for Holcim Philippines, as you know, Holcim comes from the hardest to one of the hardest to abate industries, which is the cement industry. But it has been cutting emissions in cement production through alternative fuels, low carbon products, and innovations in green materials. And then for the Energy Development Corporation, which I also humbly represent today, we've long been powered by 100% renewable energy, bulk of which comes from geothermal. As you know, geothermal is the holy grail among RE technologies because it's the only form of RE that can provide a reliable source of 24/7 or baseload power. And we've been at it for close to 50 years. Next year is our 50th anniversary. But apart from that, we've also established the Net Zero Carbon Alliance to help businesses operating in the Philippines to accelerate or begin their decarbonization journey. This is our response to our mission to forge collaborative pathways for a decarbonized and regenerative future. So these companies, and there are quite more companies in the Philippines, they aren't just ticking boxes. They're actually responding to what the market demands. So emphasis on what the market demands. So sustainability or going beyond it in EDC's case is now part of these companies' growth strategies. Next slide, please. And the demand comes mostly from investors and customers. We see this firsthand in EDC and in our mother company, First Gen. We're often asked by our lenders and investors, what's your carbon footprint? Have you already implemented your net zero program or your decarbonization program? For customers, they are asking us, can you help us lower our carbon footprint or even compute it for us if we get power from you? That's why companies here are starting with what's manageable, which is to shift to renewable energy and do energy audits, even track emissions, although it's still done manually most of the time using your crude Excel sheet and the calculator. But it's a start. Although for many, it's still just more of a compliance exercise, and not really for full transformation. Next slide, please. So what's holding businesses back here in the country? There are quite a lot of barriers, no? And number one, maybe it's low technical know-how, among others, no? Many still don't understand the difference of scopes one, two, and three, let alone measure or report on their emissions. And then there are cost concerns. They feel or they believe, they think that decarbonization is expensive, especially for SMEs, where margins are still tight. And then, of course, admittedly, there are policy gaps. The government has not yet committed to net zero by 2050, but and also incentives and enforcements still need to catch up here in the country. And maybe we can talk about that later in the discussion. So simply put, there's lack of pressure. If you're not export oriented or publicly listed, there's often little urgency to act. Okay, so where do opportunities lie considering these challenges? Um, some of the opportunities include, of course, renewable energy is now more accessible more than ever. Sorry, next slide, please. There, thank you. Um, right now, with the implementation of the retail electricity access, no, to or the retail competition open access to eligible businesses, and there's also the green energy option program, and then recently there's the retail aggregation program here in the country, where businesses or even residents, houses, homes can actually pull together their power demand to request for better rates from retail electricity suppliers. No, so this access actually enables businesses and other eligible customers to directly contract their or get their power from licensed ARCOA or green energy option program providers. Unfortunately, the current power supply or the RE supply of the country still cannot supply the entire Philippines power demand. So bulk of the power from the country still comes from coal, about 60%. And therein lies the opportunity for power players to put up more RE facilities. In the meantime, there's RE, although very limited, but there's also natural gas, another stable supply of power. It's less carbon intensive compared to coal. So it's referred to as a transition fuel because we all know it can't be there forever. Second, finance is catching up. We're seeing more sustainability-linked loans and blended finance options emerge, especially for transition technologies. And then third, digital tools are starting to lower their barriers to offer it for free, maybe for limited exposure or limited access. No, there are also free carbon accounting platforms, AI-driven energy tracking, and tools and other tools to help companies get started. No, and lastly, most importantly, I may say, collaboration works. Next slide, please. It has been proven, maybe through platforms, no, like the Net Zero Carbon Alliance, that it actually works, no. So NESCA is more than an advocacy; it's actually a space for action, and that's I think what separates us from other advocacy clubs or advocacy organizations or social clubs. We offer science-based guidance, capacity building, and access to resources, tools that can help them decarbonize. There's also technology providers and advisors that act as enablers. And we're proving that when companies move together, they move faster and farther. No, so in closing, let's just maybe skip the next slide and go to the last slide. In closing, are Philippine businesses actually ready to decarbonize? Um, I say that some are, and many are getting there, and more will follow if we make this transition practical, inclusive, and collaborative. Because it's really not just about compliance; it's about competitiveness, and it's no longer about just the climate. It's also about credibility of our businesses. So decarbonization is a business transformation, and let's go to the last slide, please. And those who embrace it here in the Philippines early, seriously, and together will be the ones to thrive. Thank you so much. And I'll be ready to respond to your questions later.
Amazing. Thank you so much, France, for that fantastic country snapshot that holds a lot of promise for Philippine corporations already on the journey, leading or needing more support. Now we come to our final speaker, and this is a lady whose time is very precious as always. Thank you so much. Esther Ann is the Chief Sustainability Officer of City Developments Limited in Singapore. Esther has helped shape Singapore's corporate sustainability journey and brings global perspective through her work with TNFD, WGBC, and the UNESCO Circularity Committee. Esther, great to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Hello, hi, hello from Singapore, and thank you for having me. Let me try to get my slides up, and think well, definitely. I think all those in the sustainability or climate, professionals, we are all running very fast now because we are really living in a very unsustainable world. In 2024, we actually, it is actually the hottest year in on record in the world. And look like I have a bit of problems to call up my slide, but let me try again. Yeah, but anyway, I will just continue to share. So 2024 was the hottest year since record started in 1850. But we are not sure what is the future lies in us, but there are actually also solutions and that we can also look at. Let me try to share again and see whether it works. Okay, and in fact, regionally, we have make quite a lot of commitment in among our ASEAN countries, and so we all know that actually. NDC, the Paris Agreement, in Singapore, we actually renew our commitment to even raise the bar for our commitment to, by 2050 and by 2030 as well. So all these are national agenda and climate actions that we will feel it at the business level. If I may just share, from my perspective as let me see whether I can work on this. I'm so sorry that it doesn't seem to work, the slide. I will just continue. And so what will happen is that when the national level commit to the global climate targets, who will feel it? Of course, businesses will have to share the load, and there will be transition risks and regulatory risks and also financial risks. And just now, the speakers already talking about the regulations and requirement as well as like reporting. And similarly, Singapore's carbon tax currently is $25 per ton. Next year, $45. Before, by 2030, it will be $80 per ton. There will be definitely business case and a financial, case for businesses to step up to decarbonize. And how do we decarbonize? Of course, in the building environment, we know that we have high carbon footprint, 37% of the global greenhouse gas emission. In our region, we are experiencing very rapid growth, and we are proud to be almost, the fastest growing region in the world. And urbanization, electrification. These are the things that we have to look at the agenda currently and also to meet the increasing demand in the future. Just imagine yourself if one day if we have no electricity, you can't even talk to each other like we are doing now. And that electrification, there are pros and cons. Once we have no energy consumption supply, almost the whole world, the whole business will stand still. You can't even access to your computer or talk to anyone in other parts of the world or within your country. So, and in the building sector, we are next to the equator in Singapore. Definitely throughout the year, we are all hot. And I cannot, as a landlord to tell, my clients and my tenants that, sorry, we are going to provide you, half day or, limited supply of energy. And without ventilation, without thermal comfort, and definitely it will suffer, in terms of productivities and in terms of, productivities and efficiency. And of course, how we design our building, how we procure, what materials to procure, and how we build will make a lot of difference. And we can't do it alone, just like my fellow panelists say. We look at the whole life cycle. From the day we purchase the land, we have to work with, the land seller and also the architect, the designer, and also engineer, main contractor, subcontractor, suppliers, and how we can sales together to a low carbon future. There are a lot of technologies that are available, but where can we get the funding is very important. So as a company, we need to suggest that there are 4 areas that you should do in terms of your strategy. First is to integrate sustainability into your business so that everyone is sailing to the same direction towards the net zero goals and the energy reduction goals. So this is something very important from your board of directors to your top management to the rank and file and across all of your business units and operational unit, and plus the whole big circle of ecosystem of stakeholders just now I mentioned. And of course, just now the other speaker also talk about reporting. It is going to be mandatory for quite a number of jurisdictions and stock exchanges, including Singapore and our neighbors in Malaysia and Thailand and all. So what we could do is we have to make sure that we track the impact and also report impact through our sustainability reporting. And for listed company, it's not by choice anymore. It is a mandatory requirement. And the other 2 strategic focus, I call it the 4I. We talk about the integration, we talk about impact, and how can we minimize the impact. It's about innovation. Innovation is very important. We talk about risk. Risk, we are talking about not just mitigation. Mitigation is license to operate, it's a given. But most importantly is adaptation. Apply technologies and solutions to accelerate green building performance and also your business performance. Apply low carbon solutions, circular economy solutions with innovative solutions and technologies and applications, then we can move the needle. And of course, solar energy in our region will be very, very impactful because I think we have plenty of sun and definitely, and the solar panels price have come down almost 80 to 90% over the last decade. So solar energy is actually our biggest bet, if you ask me, in our tropical region. And last but not least, you need to invest. Where can we mobilize capital is very important. And just now, someone mentioned about sustainable finance. And in fact, we rolled out the first green bond in Singapore in 2017. And since then, we have not moved, no turning back at all. We have actually, worked with our financier, the banks, to create green loans, SDG innovation loan, and also green revolving facility, especially sustainability-linked loan, which is very powerful and very useful. Without mobilizing capital, we can't talk about technologies and solutions. And last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about the nature-based solutions, because climate actions, climate crisis, and nature crisis are 2 sides of the same coin. And how do you resolve problem, of our climate and energy? You can't ignore nature, because about 50% of global GDP rely on nature, shipping, fishing, hospitality, and there are a lot more that rely on healthy planet. So I would like to say that not just because of regulations that we need to push the agenda. We also need to push the agenda because we need a healthy planet for our people, not just ourselves, but for our children and grandchildren and all. So without healthy planet, without healthy people, you won't have, businesses, to thrive for everyone. So I think regulations is one thing. It is real. It is coming our way, but there are also larger pictures that we have to look at to, to speed up on our climate action, to speed up on our sustainability. And energy is crucial. Without energy, we can't even, live and and run our business. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Esther, for sharing that very inspiring country snapshot for Singapore. And we'd like to invite all our speakers, James, Francis, to um, turn on your cameras as we adjourn to the Q&A section. Also inviting our participants to start putting in your questions onto the chat for our panel speakers. And we will be looking forward to engaging with you very soon. Let's kick off this Q&A with the EU CBAM. That is a looming tariff that will be engaging with across Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. In where you sit, how do you see businesses are starting to react or engage with this looming tariff? And are there any of those that are seeing the opportunity instead of being threatened by it? I know that we have a different reaction to any new policy, but are there some case studies perhaps that you would like to highlight that are pivoting businesses, decarbonizing businesses so that they can proactively engage with the EU CBAM? I guess I'll start with James, if I could.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Ping. I think, CBAM is definitely something that it's a driving sort of lever for businesses in Thailand. I think in terms of the actual pressures that are puts on Thai companies, it's not as, not as worrisome as it used to be. I think a lot of Thai companies are in quite a good place in order to meet the requirements, especially the reporting requirements of CBAM, right? And also understanding that given the state of things around the world as well, that CBAM is going to be extended by another year and provide a lot more clarity to companies. I think what we start to see now is that a lot of Thai companies, although not exporting directly into CBAM, they are part of supply chains that also export into CBAM, right? So we're starting to get a lot of requests from companies within the region, requesting life cycle assessments and requesting, the carbon emissions embedded in their products. And I think that a lot of companies are using this not only to disclose to CBAM, but for other benefits as well, right? Meeting their reporting requirements and also making sure that they're able to remain strong in the ever-changing, green supply chains. So I think what a lot of companies have been doing is really doing that activity for ESG mapping. So looking at all the supply chains, looking at what requirements they need to meet in order to make sure that they can remain resilient in the changing green supply chains, as opposed to seeing only CBAM as a threat. So I think it's a good awareness phase, and I think a lot of companies are quite active in preparing themselves to combat this as well.
Very well said. Thank you. Esther, did you have anything to add to how Singapore in particular is engaging with this carbon policy?
Well, definitely. We started actually SBTI, since 2018, and also CDP reporting for since 2010 already. Carbon, energy are definitely biggest challenge, of most businesses and most countries. And especially for Singapore, we are renewable energy challenge because of our land scarcity. So energy efficiency is very important. Find new way of doing things and not just have to look at the whole life cycle. And if I could just share that, okay, the whole region is, urbanizing very fast, right? And almost a lot of people are actually moving to the cities. And just to show you some data, that cities actually account for only 3% of land mass, but they consume almost up to 80% of energy worldwide and 70% of greenhouse gas emission. So our region is really fast growing, and we're very, very proud of being in the area of action. But it also shows also present challenges. How are we going to meet the rising demand? Especially we have younger generation and who want to live and work in cities, and just transportation. Even EV population has gone up like crazy. You just imagine one day that yes, no electricity supply, the whole world almost will be in a standstill. Look at all the data center, the high energy consumption, and how are we going to supply that demand to meet, all our digital world demand? So yes, CBAM or any other regulations are definitely, tariffs and all those, it's affecting all businesses in terms of cost, in terms of sourcing of materials, especially in the building material. We source from different parts of the world and also have high carbon footprint, whether it is steel or cement and sand, is actually universal. Where you build, you also have to rely on these are the top building materials. And importing it from, overseas is also adding the carbon footprint. So on one hand, we are committed to very ambitious target of decarbonization. On the other hand, we also have to meet increasing demand. So how are we going to, really strike that balance, plug the gap? And yes, we need to set target. We need to come up with solution. We need to mobilize capital, deploy technology, and also build capacity. Without people, without knowledge, you can't even tap onto what sort of technology I should use to reduce energy consumption, increase energy efficiency. For Singapore, we devote a lot on energy efficiency because we don't have enough land to build solar panel. And we also look at, renewable energy certificates, carbon credits, and also hopefully we could we'll see the, regional grid in action because we are all in the same region. Yeah, and if we can decarbonize through, carbon trading and benefiting the whole region or larger, part of the world, I think everybody will benefit. And while growing, you need not to suffer, in terms of carbon footprint and, I think, yeah, this is something that we are working on in terms of policies, regulations. You will see a lot, whether from energy policy or reporting policy or, financial policy. A lot of bankers, if you talk to them, they will look at your sustainability performance before they even look at your project, finance application. So I think there are strong business case for businesses to really step up on decarbonization.
Thanks very much. And a quick thought about that, friends, perhaps.
Yeah, I second the motion with what Esther said. Everything that she says is also applicable to the Philippines, and we're still a baby in terms of decarbonization here in the country. And I think the primary challenge would be learning how to compute the carbon footprint of the companies. As I said, it's just a small group that's just starting to do this, and there's no law or regulation really. And there's even that question here in the country on who owns the carbon. So carbon credits is not really in place here formally here in the country. But with everything that Esther said, also lies the opportunity uh, to um, to make this profitable for the businesses by shifting to renewable energy and coming up with eco-friendly, less carbon-intensive products so that they can also be competitive in the global market when this becomes implemented here in the country.
Thanks so much. I come to you, James. What do you think are one of the things or one of the challenges that businesses in Thailand articulate when they are invited to decarbonize or when they are presented with an opportunity or a challenge to decarbonize? What are one of the real problems that they articulate?
Sure. Thank you, Ping. I think, when it comes to decarbonization in Thailand, there still are a few misconceptions, right? So I think a lot of businesses think that, if it's not mandatory, we're not a large MNC or a listed company, or we're not exporting into the EU, we're not affected and we don't need to do anything. I think this is quite a risky sort of misconception, but I think that there's a failure to see and understand the direct pressures affecting their ability to compete and their competitiveness on the global stage, right? We have corporate policies being rolled out all over the world, and this extends to their subsidiaries and companies in which they hold shares in, right? So this means we're starting to see that there's divestitures happening, so companies actually selling off their shares to decarbonize. we start to see that, leading companies around the world, their targets are not only scope 1 and 2 emissions, but they're also looking at their supply chains. So there's increased amounts of, procurement, supplier policies. Some large companies require their vendors and their suppliers to be RE100 to comply to their targets as well. So there's a risk that companies can also lose their place in the green supply chains. We also see ESG investing trends. We start to see that private investors and asset managers are looking at investments, right? So they're not going to invest in a company that doesn't have sustainability as their priority, because they understand that these companies will have issues in trying to compete if they don't have a plan in place, right? And also there's the rise of conscious investors as well. So investors such as millennials or larger investors want to green out their portfolio and invest in companies with strong ESG scores and mandates in place. We also start to see consumer trends start to shift as well. The spending power now is with Gen Z and millennials. And we can see that from recent studies that 70% of millennials and Gen Zs suffer from climate anxiety, right? So we start to see that they start to choose what products and services they procure and how that has an effect on ESG and sustainability. I myself, I've switched a lot of the products that I use to more low carbon, more recycled products as well. So it's not just a trend, but it's something that's actually happening right now, right? We also start to see on the green financing side that banks are starting to green out their portfolio because their financial emissions are in scope 3. So they're selling off loans. They're trying to provide more instruments to green out their portfolios. So I think, it's really understanding that even though you're not in a mandatory market as yet, you're not a large MNC, failing to understand the indirect pressures will really lead to a loss of competitiveness. And I think another misconception is that a lot of companies still view decarbonization as a cost center, right? They don't understand that by doing this, they can future-proof their business, they can increase their competitiveness, and that sustainability can act as a catalyst for value creation as well. Their ability to remain in green supply chains, their ability to reduce cost as well as decarbonization, their ability to access green financing for growth, and the list goes on and on. So I think those are the two key misconceptions for companies, maybe not only in Thailand, but throughout the region as well.
Thanks so much, James. I have my eye on the time, but I'll take one question and from our audience members, and then come back to our panel speakers on the rest of the discussion here. We aim to be able to finish on time, but please pardon us if there's 1 to 2 minute delay in there. But I'll take a question from M. Which country do you think in the region is leading from a carbon-free energy perspective? Very quick answers. Esther.
Without data to validate it, I wouldn't want to say it, but I would say that for Singapore, definitely very difficult because we are struggling. We just don't have enough land, and but we are working on a lot of options, especially energy efficiency. Yeah, but I would say there are a few countries are really in the forefront, that featuring here, as well as Malaysia also driving very fast. Yeah.
Thank you so much. James, very quick one.
Sorry, Pin, you actually cut out just then. Can you repeat the question for me?
Which country in the region is leading from a carbon-free energy perspective?
I think, it's undeniable that we always view Singapore as, our big brother or our big sister in the region, right? Because all the policies are very well aligned and they've taken careful steps to really design the infrastructure to allow for companies to decarbonize. So I would have to say Singapore, but I think, a lot of countries within the region are very active, which is a very good sign for us to see as well.
Thank you. Francis, your take.
Unfortunately, it's not the Philippines, but I hope we'll get there someday. But to date, I guess my exposure with that of Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam, if I may say, because they already have policies in place. So with those policies, the next thing to do is just follow them and then find ways to make it more profitable for the businesses. And I hope the Philippines will follow soon.
Thank you so much. Let's take 2 more questions if we could, please. Bear with us. We have a very strongly engaged audience staying on here. And this one is for Francis and Esther. Esther, With your hat within CDL, you already alluded to this in saying that there has to be leadership buy-in for the sustainability and decarbonization journey to even begin with. Francis, on the other side of the spectrum, as a lead convener of the Net Zero Carbon Alliance, you're day-to-day facing with challenges from SMEs. So what practical advice would you give companies that want to start decarbonizing, but are balancing cost, risk, and business growth?
Well, it has been a challenge for the past 30 years I'm in the industry. And I think most importantly is for sustainability, a portfolio to play a strategic role, to have the years of the board. If, sustainability or, the green building energy, a professional are hidden apart with, risk management, or some department, some company even pack it under marketing and, and the risk management, it will not work. The sustainability team, energy efficiency team has to work directly with the CEO. And for us, for CDL, since 2012, I report only to the board sustainability committee, chaired, by actually involving our independent directors as well as group CEO. You need strategic level support to give you the resources and give you the empowerment at the board level. You also need your group, your CEO to give you the mandate to engage all the, your business unit. So when we approach them, they will see that I have the mandate from the empowerment from the top, so that everybody will jump on, will come on board. And similarly to reporting, I have actually produced 18 reports already. And sustainability reporting is very useful. It's an annual, check, almost like your medical check. Anybody, you look at what are the ESG factors that are not working well, or your strength, you plug the gap and also write on the strength and to move forward. And everyone in the company must sail to the same direction. Then it will be effective. And money talks. Okay, financial is very important. So our sustainability, energy, policies and practices has to look at, what you add value to the business. And if we can actually gain better access to funding, also at a favorable rate, and also attract ESG investors and responsible investors, you will be able to drive change faster and wider. But you need capacity, you need knowledge. There are a lot of technology, but how do you deploy? How do you use that? It's also still human has to play a very important role.
Thanks so much. Quick reaction, Francis.
Yes, I have to say that TDL has always been our benchmark when it comes to ESG. Esther has produced 18, I've produced 14, and CDL has always been our go-to when it comes to checking the best report, the best practices. So I have to agree with everything that Esther said, but just to add, here in the Philippines, help is here. So we have the Net Zero Carbon Alliance to help SMEs. We meet them where they are, and we try to understand how we can actually get them to do all the recommendations that Esther has given. And there are one-on-one sessions for them to identify the risks, compute their carbon footprint. They will do it themselves, but we're just the enabler to help them and to always be there to facilitate a like-minded environment, discussions with other organizations that are in the same journey as them, and those that are already advanced in their journey, to help them like big brothers, to help them in their decarbonization goals.
Thank you so much. Please allow me to end our panel discussion with a question for the gentleman in the room. James, if you had 1 minute to advise a skeptical CEO about decarbonization, what would you say?
Thank you, Ping. I think my fellow panelists have mentioned this already, right? But the business case does exist, right? I think, it's not just a cost center, but if you do this well, you can unlock a lot of potential opportunities. We've seen real life case studies where companies are getting more favorable contract terms, commercial terms by becoming more green. Another thing that I would suggest is that no one is exempt, right? There's indirect pressures, not only mandatory pressures. And I think the key thing is that, failure to adapt will certainly lead to a loss of competition. So I think it's important for companies to future-proof themselves with the ever-changing business environment in which we live in.
All right. With that, thank you again to all our speakers and to all of you for holding on strong until the very end and joining us today. This is just the beginning. CDX was created to support businesses in Southeast Asia with peer learning, practical tools, and regional collaboration. We'll be running webinars each month following the 4 CDX learning modules. Our June webinar will focus on what companies must do before they measure or manage carbon, aligning leadership, assigning responsibility, and creating internal momentum. You will hear from business leaders who've made the pivot and learn how to begin building internal climate readiness. Join our mailing list. Please scan the QR code and follow us on LinkedIn as well to be informed about the platform launch, which will be next month, and future learning sessions. A follow-up email will include today's key insights and resources. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next CDX event. If I could just invite our speakers to pause, and also our CEO, Mark, to pause for a quick photo opportunity with myself in as well. Um, Grace, let us know if it has been done. Smile, everyone.
All done.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, and see you next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.